Okay guys, let's have a look at I'll Be There from the point of view of the accompaniment that I'm providing in the BSV rendition of that. In fact, to set the scene, firstly, let's just revisit I'll Be There. The first cycle, I'm just playing it through as the piece is presented, with inside our foundation program. The second cycle, when Destiny is singing, I distill this down now to basically a couple of chords, 3 chords, and then I rhythmically bring some rhythmical variety to that. So let's just hop over to the BSV, watch it through. We'll come back and have a look at what I'm doing.
This is my life to live, something to share, something to give. Maybe one day you'll need a friend. Call me and I'll be there.
Okay, this is one of the most simple pieces from the point of view of accompaniment. When we have a look at what's going on, it's very, very straightforward. I'm going to look straight immediately at the accompaniment chords because they will give us that sort of harmonic foundation. Let's have a look at what I'm doing. So my left hand, I'm just playing my C and G, my 5th interval on C. I'm playing essentially a C major chord. I'm adding the D. So if you want to call that add 2 or add 9, we've talked before about the differing opinions about whether it should be called 2 or 9. We won't worry about that now. I'm just going to call that a C add D chord. The way that I'm playing that, essentially I'm just sort of rocking in my right hand. So in this instance, I'm leaving out the C in my right hand. So I've got the upper 3 notes and I'm really just rocking. And that's the rhythmical approach that I use for the majority of the accompaniment of this piece. Pretty straightforward. I am breaking it up a little bit with the upper note of my left hand when I've got that. That's almost like that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty straightforward. So from here, from my C chord, in the next instance, I move to this chord. Now firstly, just physically having a look at what I do, the left hand just came up to the A. My right hand, which was here, all I'm going to do now is essentially just play these notes, these 3 notes. So it's really just moving this top note down to here and playing my C, D and F. This chord, I think of this as an F 6th. So here's my F chord, here's my 6th. So I'm playing my, my C in both the left hand. I'm playing the 3rd here in the left hand as well. I've got my 5th, here's my 6th, here's my F again, and I'm just meandering as well, just doing that same rocking process. The only thing I do now with the next chord is I take my A, the 3rd, and I move it to a minor. So it's just a minor 6th. Back to the C. Now, I think in that second time I come around, I even leave out the 5th, and I'm just bringing it down to these 3 lower notes. So I might start here. So few notes, but it sounds so pretty. And that movement when it goes from the F6 to the minor, it has such lovely longing, not only just in the feeling of that, but that longing to also resolve back to home base. It's really pretty. I actually think I include a melodic phrase as well in that transition from between the first and second cycle. And I'll play that through if I remember, just let me get this right. This is my life to live. Yep, something to share. That line there. Let's have a look at what I'm doing. So I'm on my F6. So to my minor. This minor third. Here I am now. I'm playing, heading towards my E, which brings me back to my resolution note. Very simple, but very pretty. Effectively, I'm just, given that we're in a minor, I tend to think of two things here. We can really think of phrases, passages, as being borrowing from the notes of the scale of the key of the moment, or it can be oriented around the chord tones, the predominant chord tones, using notes in between as passing tones. Either way, I mean, it's just a verbal interpretation, really. And I think in terms of both. I don't necessarily think of scale. In fact, when I'm composing a piece of music, I never think in terms of theory, never. That, for me, I don't know enough to be able to do that, and I'm not a good enough player to be able to do that. I only tend to think of it as, where are my hands taking me? Where is my ear taking me? What feels right? And then once I've got it down, I like that, I begin the process of what am I actually doing? Oh, for the most part, that's a discovery for me. Not always with things that are just blatantly obvious, but most often when I'm doing things like that. Even that simple line, when I had a look at that, I'm looking at, I see what I'm doing. I'm third of the minor, the F minor, running down through to the F, the C, which is the fifth, and then running up to the E because I'm heading back towards my major chord. It's pretty straightforward. The thing about it is that you don't really need to be locked in. And when we're talking about what are we doing, the original question I've been asked is, what chords are you using in order to provide that accompaniment? It would help the students. I think it's advantageous to not lock it into precisely what I'm doing, but understand the concept. So if we're on our initial chord, so here I'm using the notes and I'm sort of creating a melody that leads me to the next chord. There's all sorts of ways you can just play around, infinite number of ways, really. So if you are going to be using this approach with your students and you want to start by borrowing the line that I have done in the BSV performance, great, but I'd also be encouraging your students to generate this for themselves, because not only is that developing their musicality, but as we know, when we are generating improvisationally, that's igniting the brain uniquely. And the more of that we can do, the better we're contributing to our students' creative capability. I think that's pretty much all we need to say about I'll Be There. If we just remember, we're working with our C, our D, our F sixth, our F minor sixth, and back to the C chord. It's so simple, but it just sounds lovely and rich. Hope you enjoy playing that. See ya.